It's Labor Day here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with South Korea's nuclear power plant project in the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic has officially picked South Korea to construct 2 nuclear reactors at the Dukovany nuclear power plant, which will be South Korea's first such project in a European country. The U.S. and Ukraine have signed a deal to form the United States-Ukraine Reconstruction Investment Fund, with the deal giving Washington its much-wanted access to Ukrainian rare earth minerals. The Supreme Court is set to make a ruling on Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung's election law violation case at 3 p.m. on Thursday. He will not show up as the defendant's attendance is not mandatory. South Korea is set to sign a contract next Wednesday to build 2 nuclear reactors in the Czech Republic, marking the country's first nuclear plant export in 16 years and also securing a foothold in Europe. Our Lee Soo-jin starts us off.
South Korea has been officially confirmed as the contractor for the Czech Republic's new nuclear power plant project. Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala said on Wednesday that a contract to build 2 reactors at the Dukovany power plant will be signed with the state-run Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power on May 7th. This comes as the Czech government announced that it will take an 80% stake in a subsidiary of a state-run energy company CEZ in charge of construction to finance the project, resolving one of the key hurdles to finalizing the nuclear power deal with Korea. CEZ had been pursuing alternative financing options after the government expanded the project from a single unit to 2, estimated to cost more than 26 trillion won, or around $18 billion. The project marks the first export of a nuclear power plant by a South Korean company since the Barakah nuclear plant in the United Arab Emirates in 2009. And if the Czech government later confirms plans to add 2 new units to the Temelin nuclear power plant, Korea is expected to be granted priority negotiation rights for that project too. A consortium led by the KHNP was selected in July 2024 as the preferred bidder to build the nuclear reactors, beating France's EDF and Westinghouse from the U.S. thanks to its competitive pricing and ability to follow tight construction timelines. While the deal was supposed to be finalized in March this year, it was delayed following complaints filed by EDF and Westinghouse against the decision. But the path to moving forward with the deal was cleared as Westinghouse and KHNP in January reached an agreement to settle the intellectual property dispute, and Czech authorities dismissed EDF appeals in April. The trial operation of the first nuclear unit is set for 2036, with the second to follow shortly after, aligning with the Czech Republic's goal of having 50% of its energy generated by nuclear power by 2050. South Korea's Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said that it welcomes the announcement of the official contract signing date and that it will make every effort to ensure a successful signing ceremony. The ceremony is expected to take place in Prague with representatives from KHNP and the CEZ subsidiary, as well as government officials from both countries. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
The U.S. and Ukraine have signed an economic partnership deal whereby the 2 countries will cooperate to establish an investment fund to help rebuild Ukraine. The U.S. Treasury Department said Wednesday that the deal would see the U.S. develop and profit from Ukraine's vast natural resources, including critical minerals. And the minerals are vital to modern manufacturing, as the U.S. contributes to a reconstruction fund for Ukraine. The long-awaited signing came just days after the leaders of the 2 countries met on the sidelines of Pope Francis' funeral in Vatican City last weekend. The star of Donald Trump's second term in office has produced a shrinking U.S. GDP. But the Trumps labeled this as an overhang from the previous Joe Biden administration, and that with patience, the U.S. will boom after the tariffs soon start kicking in. Lee Eun-jin reports.
According to a Commerce Department report released on Wednesday, U.S. GDP in the first quarter of this year contracted 0.3%, marking the lowest GDP since the first quarter of 2022. The latest GDP reading is also lower than what was forecast by economists, which according to FactSet was 0.8% growth, still down from the 2.4% growth recorded in the fourth quarter of last year. The greatest cause for this sharp slowdown seems to have been President Trump's trade tariffs. Imports soared 41.3% in the first quarter, which threw the balance of trade off, largely by the rush to bring in imports before the tariffs went up. But President Trump, during a cabinet meeting at the White House, blamed former President Biden for the contraction and even suggested that some responsibility for the next quarter would be Biden's as well, saying that such changes in the economy don't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis. Trump also said in a Truth Social post, quote, "This is Biden's stock market, not Trump's. I didn't take over until January 20th. Stock market volatility ensued following the release of the GDP report. But both the S&P and Dow marked their seventh straight day of gains. The S&P closing up 0.15%, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average added 0.35%. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq Composite dropped 0.09%. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, the indicator for measuring inflation, stayed unchanged in March after advancing 0.4% in February. In the 12 months through March, the PCE increased 2.3% after rising 2.7% in February last year. Based on Wednesday's Commerce Department data, the economy is holding up for now, but uncertainty is rising as Trump's tariffs could upend the global order as well as the U.S. economy. The latest figures don't actually reflect President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, as those were announced on April 2nd, just after the end of the first quarter. As some of those tariffs have already been paused or modified, analysts are expecting a more pronounced slowdown in growth later this year as consumers and businesses adjust. Meanwhile, President Trump wrote for everybody to be patient, saying the U.S. will soon boom after the tariffs start kicking in and after the Biden overhang is gone. Economists say the tariffs could weaken economic growth and stoke inflation, but analysts still say 1 quarter of negative GDP growth is not itself a sign that a recession is underway. 이은진, Arirang News.
The Czech Republic made it official on Wednesday that South Korea will be in charge of an $18 billion project to build 2 nuclear reactors in its country, South Korea's debut in the European market. Let's discuss more with Professor Yang Yudong this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So South Korea's first overseas nuclear power plant project in 16 years. And it's also, like I mentioned, the very first nuclear power plant project with a European country, isn't it?
Yes, yesterday, the Czech government confirmed the contract to build 2 reactors at Dukovany power plant with the KHNP standing for Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power. I think about the 3 major meanings from this official announcement. The first one is now South Korea, as you mentioned, South Korea has made a very strong foothold in the hub of European market. And also this the nuclear power plant project, because Europe has maintained a very strong hub of this market, a nuclear power plant market. And secondly, the Korean companies and Korean government has come to establish very strong reputations because they successfully moved into the European market. And the third, well, somehow we have struggled with the nuclear power plant due to our political tensions and also the terrible tsunami accident in Japan. But now this market is recovered due to heavy demand for AI and also war between Ukraine and Russia. So I think the Korean government in Korea has taken over very right moment and momentum to move into this high demanding market for electricity due to the successful launching of a nuclear power plant project in Czech.
An excellent opportunity for South Korea, of course, but I do have to say it's a splendid achievement that South Korea had to overcome numerous challenges to bring home the deal. Let's talk about those challenges that we had to go through.
Yes, there were 3 major challenges until they arrived at this official confirmed this project. The first one is, well, KHNB earned the preferred bidder status in last year.
Right.
But somehow the Westinghouse and EDF filed appeals with the Czech competition authorities. citing the patent infringement and unfair selection process. In October, Czech authority dismissed this appeal. So that was the first challenge. And second one is now Czech asked for the 60% of localization rate. And also the Westinghouse called for their own significant proportion of all the projects with the KHNP. So at the moment, we have no idea how much proportion the KHNP promised with the Westinghouse. So somehow they end up with great deals between the KHNP and Westinghouse. It lasted January. They resolved the conflict over IP infringement. So that was the second challenge. And third challenge came up in early this year in January because the Department of Energy in the United States put South Korea as lowest category of sensitive and other designated countries in the technical security issues.
Right.
Somehow the Korean government had resolved this conflict as time passes by. So those were three very significant the challenges.
Well, then again, why do you think the Czech government decided to go with South Korea eventually? Why not the U.S. or, your friends after all these hurdles you just mentioned? Why Korea after all?
All the time, there are two very critical success factors for this huge scale of project, time and budget. So, KHNP, they put the slogan, on time, within budget. So they, emphasized several times to Czech government that they will keep the due dates within the promised the budget. But this is very, very, very hard, the vision, because even though the current KHNP earned their first project with the United Arab Emirates 6 years ago, but they have a struggle. They could not keep the budget and the time was delayed. But this is a very serious and significant challenge, but they promised several times that they will keep those two major constraints to make a huge success from this project. And that successfully persuaded Czech government.
And of course, it's an $18 billion project we're talking about. But the question is, can we expect to see long-term stable profits out of the project? Because there are voices of concerns that we may not.
Yes, well, there are a couple of reasons for this concern. The first one, as I already mentioned, 6 years ago, the KHNP made a contract for the Baraka in UAE. They expect about 10% of a profit rate. But as the project has been delayed and the profitability has moved down into the negative areas. So again, there are many, many concerns about this long-time and huge-scale project. It's very likely that we cannot keep the promise as we had planned in the beginning. And second one, there was a strong demand from Czech government for the localization rate, and also the Westinghouse, a demand for a significant proportion for this project. Those factors may make a significant impact on the profitability. But the problem is we have no idea of the details, all this, even the revenue scale or proportion rate or localization rate.
Right.
But, we earned about $80 billion when we built 4 reactors in UAE. Now we earn almost similar revenues for the 2 reactors. So many people have very, the positive estimation for this project, though.
Then can we have our hopes high about clinching another nuclear power plant project? Because like my colleague Lee Soo-jin reported, the Czech Republic is considering building 2 additional reactors over in Temelin, right?
Yes, not just Czech. We have Finland, we have Poland, Bulgaria, Turkey, UK, Netherlands, Saudi Arabia, Vietnam. There are many, many countries who declared to build a new power plants because they cannot stand all the huge demand, huge demand due to AI operations. And there was a very positive estimate from the directors of WNA, Sama Bilbao. He mentioned that until 2050, all the nuclear power plants need to increase their electric power generations by 3 times in 20 years or 25 years. So we can expect very positive and huge demand for electricity. And there's no other way, no alternatives, but the nuclear power plant to increase the electricity in that short period of time.
It's not just semiconductors or cars that will keep us fed. It's now a grand nuclear power project over in Czech Republic. Professor Yang, thank you as always for joining us, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. The Supreme Court will rule this afternoon on the election law violation case of the Democratic Party presidential candidate Lee Jae-myung. Now, he will not appear in court as the defendants are not required to be present. The ruling follows an appeal by prosecutors against a high court ruling last month that had overturned an initial guilty verdict. The top court decided last week to have the full bench oversee the case and reviewed it at an unusually fast pace. Lee was convicted of making false statements during the previous presidential campaign, including denying ties to a key figure involved in a land development scandal in Seongnam during a media interview back in 2021. He is also accused of having made false claims that there was a pressure from South Korea's land ministry to rezone a research institute site in the Baekhyun-dong area of Seongnam. The ruling will be broadcast live on TV and the court's YouTube channel. With the U.S. looking to reconstruct its own shipbuilding industry, it's turning to South Korea for their grand project. And the U.S. Navy chief came to Korea for visits to major shipyards here for cooperation between Seoul and Washington. Our Moon Ji-young reports.
U.S. Navy Secretary John Fallon is on a visit to South Korea in a move to enhance bilateral cooperation in the shipbuilding sector under U.S. President Donald Trump's leadership. According to industry sources, Fallon is visiting HD Hyundai Heavy's headquarters in Ulsan and Hana Ocean's shipyard in Koje on Wednesday, both located in the southern region of the country. He is expected to meet with the company's top executives, including HD Hyundai Vice Chairman Chung Gi-sun and Hana Group Vice Chairman Kim Dong-kwan, to discuss potential collaboration in areas of naval shipbuilding, maintenance, repairs, and overhauls. The Navy chief's visit comes as Trump has highlighted the need to revitalize America's shipbuilding industry and the importance of partnering with allies, including South Korea, a global powerhouse in naval vessel construction. Before arriving in South Korea, Fallon visited Japan, where he toured local shipyards and met with Japanese Defense Minister Ken Nakatani to seek bilateral cooperation in naval ship maintenance.
The competition with China, especially regarding the scale of warships, is so fierce that the U.S. shipbuilding industry cannot effectively compete. This is why President Trump plans to revive it.
Meanwhile, acting President Han Duck-soo met with John Fallon on Wednesday morning to discuss cooperation in the shipbuilding sector, including strategies to integrate this collaboration into broader trade negotiations. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korean Netflix series When Life Gives You Tangerines, known as 폭삭 속았수다 in Korean, has become a hit both at home and abroad. Now, what's so special about it? Our An Sung-jin tells us.
뱉는 게 뭐 별거냐? 똑같아.
This line from the last episode of the Korean drama When Life Gives You Tangerines captures one of the underlying meanings of the series, living life. The story of a young couple on Jeju Island and how their life progresses through many ups and downs caught many sniffling throughout the episodes of this heartwarming story.
Across generations, these stories and the lines from the characters were very relatable in talking about life and values because it revolves around family.
Such storylines have resonated with viewers from around the world as the show topped Netflix's global non-English show chart.
The theme is so universal. The fact that there are Korean themes involved is part of the fascination and the interest for me as a Westerner. That show makes me feel I'm there. I feel part of their life. I feel I'm experiencing what it's like to be in Korea during this stretch of time. I think it's absolutely universal.
The series' Korean title uses a phrase from Jeju dialect, 폭삭 속았수다, which translates to "you've worked hard." The drama portrays glimpses of the beautiful scenery of Jeju Island as a background to key events in their life. The characters grow up on Jeju's rocky shores in the 1950s, and these scenes were filmed around Kimyeong Beach, where haenyeo, or female divers, can often be seen, a symbol of Jeju Island. They fall in love in the warm, bright canola fields in the 1960s, another endearing sight on the island during April and May. The characters take part in a writing contest at the Jeju-mok government office, capturing the history of Jeju. And other scenes show off the island's natural beauty.
This site right here was one of the places where the scenes of the drama was filmed. You can also get a glimpse of the traditional houses that represent Jeju Island.
The local government is developing programs so that tourists can visit these locations easily.
Through hosting drama filming locations and investing more in these programs, we hope to further invigorate Jeju's content and tourism business.
So for those who haven't had a chance yet to catch up with the series, why not give it a look to enjoy the beauty of Jeju? 안성진, Arirang News, Jeju.
Now let's take a look at some stories from around the world with our Choi Ji-hee. Good morning, Ji-hee.
Good morning, Tommy.
So Ji-hee, let's start over in the Middle East. Israel is fighting one of its worst wildfires in its history, recent history. Tell us more.
That's right. Massive wildfires broke out near Jerusalem on Wednesday morning, leading to widespread evacuations and prompting the declaration of a national emergency. On April 30th, wildfires erupted in the forest area between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, rapidly spreading due to high temperatures and strong winds. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned the blazes could reach Jerusalem itself. This has forced the evacuation of several communities and the closure of major roads. Memorial Day ceremonies and Independence Day celebrations planned for Thursday have also been canceled. The Israel Fire and Rescue Services declared their highest alert level, mobilizing over 120 firefighting teams, including assistance from the Israel Defense Forces. Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has also sought additional firefighting aid from over a dozen countries. At least 16 people have reportedly been hospitalized for smoke inhalation, and no fatalities have been reported. In Sweden, police have arrested a teenager following a shooting that killed 3 people in the city of Uppsala on Tuesday. The incident has raised concerns about escalating gang-related crimes in the nation. On Wednesday morning local time, authorities apprehended a 16-year-old suspect, with the Swedish prosecution authority confirming that the teen is being held on suspicion for murder. On Tuesday around 5 p.m., a shooting at a hair salon in Uppsala killed 3 men aged between 15 and 20. While the motive remains unclear, authorities are exploring potential gang-related connections, as one victim reportedly had ties to organized crime. Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson called the shooting as a terrible act and lamented that brutal and ruthless violence is shaking the country. The nation has been seeing a rise in violent crime in recent years, with its worst mass shooting leading to 10 deaths occurring in February. In the United States, Columbia University student and Palestinian activist Mohsen Mahdawi was released from U.S. immigration detention on Wednesday local time after a federal judge ruled his arrest was unjustified. Mahdawi, a 34-year-old who has permanent U.S. residency or green card status, was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement on April 14th during a naturalization interview in Vermont. The Trump administration attempted to deport Mahdawi under a rarely used statute, alleging his advocacy for Palestinian rights threatened U.S. foreign policy. However, U.S. District Judge Jeffrey Crawford found no evidence that Mahdawi posed a flight risk or danger and ordered his release. On Wednesday, Guinness World Records revealed that the world's tallest and shortest dogs met for the first time in early April. Facilitated by GWR, Reggie, a 7-year-old Great Dane from Idaho, standing at approximately 1 meter, and Pearl, a 4-year-old Chihuahua from Florida, measuring just over 9 centimeters in height, met as part of the institution's 70th anniversary celebrations. Despite a huge height difference, the 2 dogs quickly bonded at Reggie's home, where the event took place. Reggie, known for his gentle demeanor, was cautious around the tiny Pearl, who, according to the owner, is unfazed by larger dogs and enjoys their company.
Relief from the dry conditions is on the way. However, this will not be a gentle drizzle. The rain will start in the western regions this morning and then spread to the rest of the country throughout the afternoon. But most of the rain should taper off by tonight. Meanwhile, northwestern Gyeonggi-do province and the mountainous areas of Jeju Island could see up to 60 millimeters. The rest of the country could be seeing 5 to 50 millimeters. It's also going to be quite windy across the country, and especially along the west coast, where we could see typhoon-force gusts with wind advisories being in place there. And this rain will bring a break from the recent heat, with temperatures going down 3 to 7 degrees lower than yesterday. Seoul gets up to 18 degrees Celsius, Daegu, Gyeongju both topping out at 24 degrees. Looking ahead, we have more rain in the forecast for the entire country again during this upcoming long weekend. But today will be a wet and windy day, so please take precautions and stay safe out there.
That is all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.
제21대 대통령 재외선거.
세계 어느 곳에 있어도
내가 국가대표라는 마음으로
누구보다 땀 흘리죠. 지금이 국가대표임을
보여줄 기회. 대한민국 국민의 권리.
대한민국 국민의 의무.
반드시 투표합니다. 국가를 위한 대통령 투표. 제21대 대통령 재외선거. 중앙선거관리위원회.
지혜야, 이리 와봐. 엄마가 두릅 따는 거 알려줄게. 이리 와봐. 이게 가시가 있으니까 이거 조심해야 되거든. 여기 위에 이렇게 잡고, 약간 깊게 이렇게 해서 이렇게. 네가 한번 이거 이렇게 이거 부어봐.
이거는 잠길 정도로만 하면 돼요?
제 욕심이긴 하지만 오늘처럼 엄마랑 더 많은 봄을 계속 같이 보내고 싶다는 생각을 했어요. 한 50번 정도?
제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NLCS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다. NLCS 제주가 명문대 진학의 길을 열어갑니다.
We're here to bring a new type of news show. New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Thursday, May 1st here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're tuning into News Generation. Joining us today is Chester Dainhong.
Wow, it's May.
May already. Happy May. And Julie and Kim.
Happy first day of May.
Happy first day of May and happy Thursday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to begin our show with our keyword news. Our keyword for today is gift. Now, with Parents' Day coming up next Thursday here in Korea, many are starting to prepare their presents. Now, according to a recent survey by one domestic digital marketing platform, cash topped the list as both the most desired and the most planned gift for Parents' Day. In fact, over 70% of parents said they wanted cash, while nearly 84% of children said they planned to give it. However, this year's average gift budget has shrunk, falling to 290,000 Korean won, which is roughly $203, which is down about $56 from last year. Now, experts say the drop reflects ongoing economic pressure from high inflation and a sluggish economy. So starting with you, Julian, how are you planning to spend Parents' Day and any good gift recommendations?
Yeah, so I am planning on having a good quality time with my parents, nothing crazy, just good fashion quality time. And for your second question of gift recommendations, just like we mentioned, cash is probably the best present you can give your parents.
So you're going to give your parents the most desired gift on the list that we mentioned
Exactly.
earlier.
Straight to the point and it's desirable too.
What about you?
No, I think cash is a great gift. I think I know my parents will be very happy.
You can buy anything that you really want with cash, right?
Exactly. And also just the reaction they give when you give them
Is it different from other presents?
I've written them letters and cards and heartfelt, very sincere gifts versus I've seen how they react when they get cash. I think it's very, very different. But personally, I am visiting my grandparents, but what we usually do, and back in the States, we have Mother's Day and Father's Day. So for Parents' Day, we actually cook a meal for them. And I think this is a great gift recommendation. I think cash is also great, but spending quality time with family, but you actually preparing them a meal and having them feel treated, I think is something really special.
And I think that will be a bit more memorable too.
I think so too. So it's not that we don't want to give you cash, Mom and Dad. It's just wink.
Right. So really happy Parents' Day to all the parents who are watching our show. And that was our keyword news for this Thursday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day, Thursday. While we usually shine a spotlight on the Korean wave and the global appeal of Korean culture, today's topic is a little bit different. So take a look at the screen to find out more. Today is May 1st, Labor Day in Korea. It's a day to recognize and appreciate the contributions of workers and to boost workplace morale. In light of this day, we will explore how our generation sees labor. So So for our topic today, we are going to go through a few real-life workplace scenarios that have been sparking debate among young workers here in Korea through our ONX segment. So what used to be seen as the norm for previous generations, for example, our parents and grandparents, is now being re-examined and in some cases outright challenged by young workers. So we're going to get right to it to our first scenario, which is you should arrive at work at least 10 minutes early to get ready. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. So X and O. Let's start with X, Julian.
Yeah, so many of us in a generation see every single minute as precious time outside of work hours. So if we're having to have the common courtesy to arrive to work 5 to 10 minutes early, then many of us in a generation feel that we are able to shut off our computers and also leave work 5 to 10 minutes early too. Every minute counts and all those times just add up. So people believe that if they have to come in early, they should be compensated for doing so.
And I think that to elaborate a bit more on that, you mentioned how every minute counts, and I think that it counts even more during the morning, because when considering rush hour, if you want to arrive 10 minutes early, then I think that you'll have to start or get up even earlier than in the afternoon, which is the reason why I think some young workers are kind of hesitant towards arriving a bit early to their regular working hours. And then now we're going to listen to you, Cheska. You chose O.
Yes,
why?
I did, yes. And for the beauty of today's discussion segment, I will play advocate for the other side. I'll play for the other side. As you mentioned, every minute is really precious in the morning.
Right.
So I think for the benefit of having that extra time to get ready, leaving early could never really hurt. Especially usually we work in South Korea. You know, there's a lot of traffic and rush during the rush hours and unforeseen scenarios that could happen. So it just lessens the pressure if you get a little bit ahead of time.
Right.
But I think it's something that would be very highly recommended. But as an MZ, I'm not sure if it can be enforced enough though in a workplace, but it's something that I would highly recommend if possible.
Yeah, because if we had to choose either arriving late or arriving early, I think nobody would choose arriving late, because then you'll get in big trouble.
Exactly.
big trouble.
And we have arrived late before, right?
Yeah.
The pressure of getting to the workplace.
Yes, and then like encountering your boss.
Exactly, like walking in, trying to come up with every possible excuse that could work in your favor, but knowing very clearly that everybody knows that you're late, like everything just piles up and your day just starts in a not so right foot. So I think just a little bit early could never really hurt.
Definitely. So for our discussion today, we are going to look at our viewers' opinions for each scenario. So first, we also asked our viewers the same question through a poll on our Arirang News YouTube channel. If we look at the results, 58% answered yes, while 42% said no. So it's a bit of a neck and neck, I would say. So this is definitely a controversial issue.
This was very interesting. It's very close. Yeah.
It is very close when compared to other two scenarios that we prepared for our show today. So we're now going to move on to our second scenario. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, so next statement. Company dinners or after-hour gatherings with co-workers are part of the job. So I think this is changing. This culture is changing when compared to the previous generations. But in some cases, workers are feeling pressured or even to the extent of feeling mandated to attend. So I want to ask you whether you think this is part of the job. 1, 2, 3. Oh, and then X. Oh, another divided answer. So we're going to start with you, Julian, again.
Yeah, so I am aware of this, but there is a strong debate here in Korea whether that this is work or just personal time.
Right.
And coming from being an American too, this workplace culture is something that was I would consider one of the culture shocks I've experienced here in Korea. Now, many people view this more as an important team building exercise to get closer to your work colleagues, and we're doing it to get closer with your work, and therefore I believe that this is considered work hours, because other than working, I don't really see why there is a need to do this. So I would say it's part of work hours, and many people do unfortunately feel very pressured to join these company dinners, also known as haeshiks here in Korea. And even traditional companies can make people feel pressure to drink more and having to go many rounds of drinking and different pub crawling too. So it can be very exhausting, and due to the feeling obligation and feeling like people need to attend for the sake of getting closer to the colleague, I would say it is part of working.
Right, and especially when we go to 회식s, oftentimes we not just talk about personal life or fun things, but we also talk about work from time to time, which is, I think, another reason why more young workers are feeling that this is also part of their work.
Yes, absolutely. But I would also like to be an advocate for the other side, because there
We're
are
always for balanced opinions.
Yes, I know. Arirang represents fairness, right? There are some opinions, and I think it started more from the traditional side, as we talked about. The 회식, which is like a team dinner here in South Korea culture, there is definitely a blur between like work and personal time, and especially during these team dinners, we actually get together, and then, as Eugene, you mentioned, we talk about work, but also personal life that we never get to really do at a workplace. So in a way, it is definitely a team building experience, and it is something that helps us get closer on a more personal level. And just to give you an example, here we have 회식.
Yes.
When we have great lunch 회식 where we laugh a lot and then we
have good food.
Exactly.
Even sing.
Yes,
we
even sing. And you really get to know each other a little bit deeper. And then we also talk about work. So this is something that can be very positive in some instances. However, as Julian mentioned, in some traditional circumstances, there's definitely more enforcement of drinking or mandating that makes it more pressured for certain people, that I think is bringing up different arguments about whether this is personal time or work time.
I mean, I kind of relate to the idea that 회식 is not part of the work, because for some fun 회식s, we really get closer with our colleagues.
Exactly. And then afterwards, we even choose whether we want to go, to karaoke, or like we want to go play some, games together. So I think it's a very tricky line in certain circumstances.
I think it's 회식 by 회식, depending on which 회식 you attend.
Yes, exactly. It's a case by case. So it's like,
I have to agree with that one,
right?
too. Yeah.
But news gen 회식s are very fun, right?
It's the best.
That's why I was kind of like, because our 회식 is really great. So,
well, hope you guys can join in the future. But we're now going to see how our viewers weighed in. So for this question, if we look at the poll results, 76% said these 회식 or gathering events are informal extensions of work, while 24% answered they offer a valuable time to bond. So we're seeing the opinion being more shifted to one side for this question, definitely. Okay, so we're now going to move on to our third and final scenario, which is lunch breaks are personal time, so it's totally okay to eat alone or even step out of your office and go home briefly and then come back. What do you think? 1, 2, 3. What's your big X? And then so we're gonna start off with you, Cheska, right?
This one I struggled a lot when I was preparing. And
it is a tough question.
It is tricky, and I actually have both opinions, but today I'm gonna represent one side. But I am going to speak for some people who may think this way. And in Korea, typically, if you ever visited Korea, during lunch hours, you would see a lot of people grouping together and walking on the streets, going to lunches. And this is kind of like 회식. It's a group activity. So if you isolate yourself too much, you may really miss out on a chance.
Yeah, you may be left out.
You may really miss out on a chance to really get to know a colleague or even make a really nice friend to grab coffee or lunch with. And sometimes your team boss pays for your lunches, so why not hop on that ride? Also, this is something interesting. In some cases, and in some very specific industries, there might be some emergencies that might pop up, like medical or even Eugene.
I can speak for that, because there were cases when I had lunch with my colleagues and then we got a call or a message from our upper ups that there was breaking news. So then we had to finish lunch really quickly. We either had to write an article or we even had to go out on the field. So I think that for some industries, it's kind of best for you to stay at your office during lunch hours.
Right, or at least with your colleagues or within the vicinity of the office. So this one is definitely case by case also, but I think this is one side where people might think, it would be better, it would be more recommended if colleagues spent time together more often.
Then what do you have to say on this, Julian?
Yeah, so I also have to agree. It's not so black and white. There's more of a gray zone with this one too. But because I don't really see this as something that is overly individualistic, I'm gonna have to go with O. Lunchtime is considered a break time, and how one wants to spend it should be up to the individual. So whether people want to eat it alone, whether people want to just bring a packed lunch from home and eat that, or even just squeeze in a quick workout, it should be free and open to whatever people want to do in the middle of the workday. We only have 30 minutes to an hour to do this, so I would say it should not be considered part of working hours or feel any obligation to eat with other people. You should spend it how you want freely.
Every minute counts, right?
Every minute counts.
And when we say that it's like an 8-hour work shift here in Korea, mostly we work from 9 to 6, but that's 9 hours. But the reason why we say it's an 8 working hour system is because we don't count the lunchtime break, which could be the reason why some people are saying that it's my time.
Exactly.
It's like one of the most personal time that you can probably get.
Yes, it is.
During the 9 hours that you're in the office.
Okay, so last but not least, we're going to take a look at our viewers' polls once again. So if we look at the poll results, 63% answered yes, while 37% said no. So more people are feeling that lunch break is my time, my free time. All right, so we've heard from our panelists and we've heard from our viewers. So to help us unpack these complicated or controversial situations from a legal perspective, we'll be joined by a labor law expert after the break. Stay with us.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
And we're pleased to welcome attorney Kim Ji-soo to our show today. Welcome back to the show, Ji-soo.
Good to be here again.
Great to see you back. So, Ji-soo, we'd like to first ask you, in Korea, is it legally required for employees to arrive before their scheduled work hours? What's the answer?
So it's a question that comes up more than you might think, and the answer is no, it's not legally required. Unless the work officially begins before the scheduled starting time, employees have no legal basis to demand their employees to arrive early. And now if someone voluntarily comes in early, for example, to grab a coffee or to start their work at their own pace, that's one thing. However, if there's an expectation to perform tasks before the clock starts ticking, then that time qualifies as work. And under Korean labor law, all work should be compensated. So it's a matter of fairness, but more importantly, of legal obligations.
And we have another interesting question that is hotly debated among MZ generation, and it's team dinners and company outings, which is 회식, as you know, here in Korea. How are they viewed under the law, and are they considered extension of work?
So that depends on the nature of the event. And if it's truly voluntarily, if employees are free to participate without the fear of being the consequences, then no, it's not considered a work. However, if participation is expected and if there's some kind of a pressure from their supervisors, or if employees feel that skipping the event might impact their working standard, then we begin to move into different legal categories. And in those cases, courts may see such events as an extension of work. And in fact, if an injury happens during such an occasions, it may even be recognized as a work-related accident under industrial accidental law. So while the setting may be informal, the legal implications can be quite serious over there.
Great. So just to wrap things up, I wanted to ask you, what are some important rights and responsibilities that young workers in Korea should be aware of?
So I would like to tell every young worker this, don't assume your rights to be automatic. You definitely should know them. Make sure you receive a written contract before you begin, and you have to confirm your wage meets or exceeds the legal minimum, which is currently 10,131 per hour. And if you work more than 15 hours a week, you're entitled to be paid weekly day off, also known as 주휴수당. And don't forget about your right to be enrolled in national insurance programs if you are a part-timer. And I also would like to stress that the rights comes with responsibilities. So you need to show up on time and communicate with your supervisors clearly, and you must do your part, because just as employers must follow these laws, employees also have a role to play in keeping the workplace fair and functional, I must say.
Very valuable advice on this Labor Day. All right, Ji-soo, always thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so after our discussion and our conversation with Jisoo, it's clear that workplace expectations are evolving fast when compared to the previous generations. So any closing thoughts on how young workers, our generation, is reshaping this office culture in Korea?
I think that's a very interesting question. And I say this with a lot of love, but also with a lot of care, because I do accept that I am biased because I am
part of the younger generation.
Exactly. So I do come with a certain level of perspective from the MZ generation. That's why I say with love and very careful. I do very much respect our previous generations, and I think what they have built is actually helping us build more on top of it. But in a way, I think the positives that the young culture is bringing could possibly outweigh the drawbacks that are happening. So I'm not ignoring the drawbacks that are happening, because I do recognize that some people are actually trying to get away or take advantage of the system. But the things like remote work or something that Julian mentioned, like spending the lunch hours or securing our time to either work out, to improve ourselves, or actually for mental and physical health, I think overall could be beneficial as a whole society and as a person. Because in a way, I think it's really important for a company to grow if the workers are actually satisfied and happy. However, I do see a lot of issues in terms of how to balance, because Jisoo mentioned it so eloquently, rights and responsibilities always come together. So we can't just go and keep demanding our individualistic behaviors and our hours when we are really part of a community that has a common goal, a company goal, right? That we are going to work towards, and we are legally contracted to work together. But in a way, I think this balance between like how much can we actually secure and how much responsibility should be fulfilled is something that we really need to work with in our generation.
Yeah, this is something we should navigate through, but I think that discussions or conversations that we are having on YouthGen could actually facilitate that even
I
more.
really think so, and I really love the poll that we did because it was kind of nice to see how people are actually thinking about these issues, and that can also facilitate changes in the future in the companies as well.
Definitely. Now, what do you think, Julian?
Well, very eloquently said. I agree with everything that you just said.
I represent the MZ generation labor side on the Labor Day.
I love it. But there are some few things I do want to mention too. I really do hope that there are more stable jobs for young people, because not only will this bring a stronger sense of belonging in the workplace, but it will actually help foster a stronger sense of community and culture too. And going off of community too, I think it's important not to just stand up for our own rights, but for other workers' rights too. As a society, it's crucial to consider how we can uplift everyone too, not just ourselves. By working together, we can create a better working condition, not just for ourselves, but for all of us too.
We're ending off on a very heartwarming note today. And that's all we have for today, but YouthGen will be back tomorrow, Friday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Cheska.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Julian Kim.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are
Youth Generation.
제주 영어 교육 도시의 중심 NLCS 제주에서 세계 명문대 출신 엘리트 교사진과 해외 커리큘럼으로 전 세계 상위 1%의 학사 성과를 달성하고 있으며 졸업생들은 세계 최정상급 대학으로 진학하고 있습니다. 전인적인 성장과 함께 꿈을 찾아가는 특별한 교육의 가치. 글로벌 동문 네트워크로 계속됩니다.